Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Blood Knights. It's about sexy vampire and not so sexy vampire right here in the duo, as you can see down the bottom there. It is, I guess you could call it an action RPG, but I don't think there's enough RPG in it to really justify the term. But there is some loot collection, even though the loot is most assuredly not random from what I can tell. So it's closer to being more of a third-person action game slash spectacle fighter, but it's hard to say because there's a bunch of tropes from both genres mashed together in a rather ill-conceived way. This is by a company called Deck 13. They have a back catalogue including Jack Keen, which is not that great, Venetica, as well as Ankh. And I hate to rag on them because, funnily enough, Ankh, I believe, was actually bought from a company called Artex Software. Artex Software was a developer for the Acorn Archimedes. Yes, indeed, the RISC OS machines that I used to use a long time ago before I had a PC. And they made a game called Ankh. And I actually had copy number... which one? 16, I think, of that game. They were actually burning them at the expo, right there on discs for you to buy. And I'm pretty sure that's where they got the license from. So there's a little bit of nostalgia there. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of this particular title's critique, because there's a lot to say, and most of it isn't good. So if we have a look at the settings menu, you will notice there barely is one. You can have resolution, and that's it. Obviously, general detail level, which for some reason defaults to low, is right there, but what is this? Do we really need the hyper-stylized menu nonce? Can we just have low, medium, high? Which is bad, I might add. You still need better settings than that in a PC title, but really? I mean, this is completely unnecessary. At least they have separate volume sliders, which actually work properly, which is nice. I'll take them for that. Controls cannot be rebound, as you can see, which is lousy. I should also remind you, if you happen to have a 360 pad actually plugged into the machine, the game defaults to it and doesn't let you switch unless you unplug it. This also means that the menus stop working with the mouse. As in, you can still kind of move around like the cursor was supposed to be there, and it highlights options, but you can't click on them. It is ridiculous. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But you might want to pay attention to this, because stuff like dodge, which the tutorial never explains, is there and is kind of vitally important for you to live, so there you go. Aside from that, there's gameplay options. I do like the fact that they allowed you to mess around with the graphical user interface area size. That's something that most games don't allow you to do. It's nice that it's there, and I feel that it should be in more games. So there you go. That's probably the best thing that I can really say about that. So let's resume the game. As you can see, I have played for, it claims 35 minutes. I'm pretty sure I've played for longer than that. It may not count the times where you actually have to restart because of the ridiculously, awfully spaced checkpoints. That is a possibility. But whatever the case, there are some games where you really don't need to play a lot to be able to see the key flaws. And this is something you've got to understand about first impressions. The time is going to vary. Alright, so these are the two characters, but you only play one of them at any given time. You see both of them, including Sexy Vampire and Not So Sexy Vampire, in the cutscenes, and they do occasionally argue with each other, but you're basically bonded to this vampire, and you can switch between characters at will. You might think it would be designed to be a co-op game, but there is only local co-op available. That means no online, no local area network, just you and two controllers and a friend that you coerced into playing this thing. Okay. I'll let them retreat. There we go.
We'll take care of these creatures.
Now, I do have to say that I'm not massively impressed by things like the facial animation. It's a little bit of a picky thing to say, but they never blink. And their hair appears to be stuck to their head and never moves. There's some really weird facial animation going on here. I'm not really sure what's up with that, but let's just say the art department's budget, or indeed talent, didn't seem to be too high. Which is a shame, because some of the creature design is quite nice. Well, ignore just how ridiculously exploitative the vampire design is. Why is she wearing 1/4 of the armor that I am? You know, you want to explain that to me? That there is no good reason for that. It is blatant pandering, and it's sad, and we don't need it. Thank you very much. So this is the gameplay, as you can see. It's a hack and slash, and you can hack and slash by spamming the left and right mouse buttons. I would like to tell you that there's a bunch of other really complex combos, but there aren't. If we head over to the skill screen, we will see exactly what you can level up. So you keep leveling up your sword attack, and that means you get more attacks, yeah? Just repeatedly pressing the left mouse button. And then you can also keep going down, and you'll find other things like passive critical hit chance, passive stun chance, passive knockback chance. Some pretty damn boring stuff, unfortunately. And in this case, when you level this up, it's a little bit of knockback, a little bit of splash damage. I would hope that once you get it to a really high level, it actually makes a damn difference. I really, really do. That would be nice, but I am not 100% convinced. Apparently, that can't go any further than that. So this is the maximum my combo can get, which is that spin and then a jump. And there's no actual decision-making going on here. It's just me clicking the left mouse button over and over again and then spamming my right button when I can. So the combat system is really, really unimpressive. What they have managed to put in is a blood drinking system, because, hey, you are a vampire, so it's kind of to be expected. And as a result, I think there was a chest over there that I missed. As a result, you are able to drink blood, which will allow you to regenerate health, and depending on which character you're playing, you can either draw the enemy to you using a button press while drinking the blood and levitating them in the air, kind of like Darth Vader, or you can push them away. I'm not really sure what that was, why it disappeared, what I collected, but hey, there you go. So I was talking about switching between characters. You can do that by pressing Q, and it puts it on a short cooldown. And this is the other character. It's the Demon Hunter from... It's sort of like the Demon Hunter from Diablo. And the aiming system on this character is really, really not very good at all. It's a little strange because the way that the aiming works in Melee, of course, is you press in the direction you want to attack and then you click. In this case, that's not the case at all. She actually controls completely differently and rotates on the spot with the mouse, whereas he does not, which is a little bit jarring. And it means that there's just no real continuity and consistency between the two actual attack and movement styles, which was a little annoying. I mean, it's not the worst thing, you'll eventually kind of get used to it, but I can't see you using this character all that much, because she is, by far, the most boring character I have ever played in any kind of action game, and I am not making that up. This is all you do. Yeah? And then you right-click for a flaming bolt, which will occasionally destroy, say, an explosive barrel. You can also toss a grenade. That is all you are going to do. That's it. That is it. Which is really, really strange. I cannot, for the life of me, explain why they thought this character was a good idea. It is not fun. Oh, please don't tell me it's puzzle solving. Please do not tell me there's puzzle solving here. I assume we could just jump over this. There we go. Ah, no, thank God. That's fine. There we go. Very nice. We didn't really... I was going to say we didn't need another cutscene, but it looks like we're going to go to a kind of a town area here. She is really dull to play, and for 98% of the game, aside from the 2 bits where I basically had to use her to shoot a ranged creature that I couldn't get at, I have used the melee guy, because at least he's a little bit of fun. It's complete hack and slash with no brain work whatsoever involved. And also, absolutely no depth to the combat system, but at least it's kind of fun hacking away at the enemy. What is not particularly fun is the storyline and the voice acting. The tutorial had some hilarious stuff in it, but let's see if it's improved a little bit as we make our way to God's Keep.
How did you get here?
A trader has his secrets. And a boat.
I want to enter the town.
As long as the sheriff and his men are gone, God's Keep will remain closed.
Well then, where do we find this sheriff?
Sir Andre and his men are down in the forest. There's a fierce vampire hunting the townspeople.
Blood Fox. I know her. A huntress from the Wild Forest clan.
Sir Andre took all the remaining guards with him. It's kind of a last attempt. If he should fail...
Then we'll never find one to grant us access. Understood. Where can we find him?
Just go back the way you came, down to the God's Keep cleft.
I want to trade.
Indeed, I do. So, trading offers you a wide variety of things. And there's also this nasty little teasing thing. I hate games that do this. It's just a pet peeve of mine. It's not a big deal, but it's like, hey, this costs 70,000 gold, and you're not going to reach it for like at least 11 more sodding hours. So, yeah, that's kind of annoying. But yeah, you're able to trade. You can collect gold, which allows you to buy items. Most of the upgrades seem to be fairly linear. It's just you buy a higher level item, and it's just better in general. You can also, of course, buy for both the male character and the female character. I'm looking to see if there's actually a weapon I can use, but apparently not before level 4, so we won't be doing anything along those lines by the looks of it. And then you can just hold the shift key to actually get a little bit of information. They have some basic stuff here and there. If we go up to Satan's Justice, you'd think there'd be some more interesting stuff. What do you mean that's Satan's Justice anyway? I was going to say, Satan doesn't seem to be all that interested in justice. But regardless, the stats available for them, if they were looking for some kind of action RPG, then they fundamentally failed to do the loot collection part of it correctly. 1, enemies don't seem to drop loot at all. You can only find it in chests. And 2, the loot is boring. Even Satan's Justice, which apparently is a... I don't even know what level this bloody thing requires. Apparently it doesn't require any, but this one right here, level 16, damage. That's it. So these grand weapons have no interesting suffixes on them whatsoever, which is a little bit disappointing to say the least. But yeah, you've got separate equipment screens for her and him, and also separate level ups as well, but hers are not particularly interesting. As you can see here, it's mostly just passive upgrades, from what I can tell. You can get something called Blood Shield, and you can do some share blood stuff as well, but that really is about it. Now, you might have noticed that the camera's a little bit weird. It really, really is, and it's actually infuriating. You haven't seen all that much combat as of yet, but when you do, you'll often find that the camera does a really poor job of tracking the action. In fact, it just doesn't. It doesn't care. It hops around all over the place and decides to take whatever cinematic view it can without any real consideration as to whether or not you'll be able to see the enemy or where indeed your character is. If it kept it centered all the time, then that would be cool. That would actually be fine. That's not really a problem, but it doesn't. It lets you run off to the side of the screen, which is a little bit strange. I can't imagine why they would let you do that. And it does make the combat rather annoying, I've got to say. Alright, let's see. There's some blood coins around the place. I'll see if I can do that. The platforming in this game isn't too great either, especially with the keyboard and mouse for obvious reasons. And I've got a bunch of insta-death chasms that you can fall down as well, which is particularly irritating because the distance, as I mentioned earlier, between the actual save points is not that great. You have to replay sometimes almost 5 minutes of the game to actually get back to where you were, which involves multiple cutscenes, which they will repeatedly keep throwing at you even if you've watched them once. Alright. Okay, so let's kill some demons and werewolves and whatever the case. I'm gonna switch out to my melee. I would imagine that they're gonna contrive a reason for me to use the ranged character at one point, just because maybe there's like heavy melee damage involved somewhere and it's like, oh, you gotta kite it or whatever. That wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But as long as I can, I'm going to avoid using that character because she's extremely boring. So, overall production values, I mean, you can very clearly see that the game is not that impressive looking, even on the highest level of detail. Particle effects are particularly weak, texture quality is not so great across the board, and the game, for some reason, is hard locked to 60 frames per second, and it does have occasional drops, not that many, like, nothing really notable, but it seems to have a little bit of a hard time maintaining solid 60. It'll drop to, like, 59, 58, and you will see the difference. Anyone that says you can't see the difference between those drops is just not experienced enough. You do see it, and 60 frames per second is a nice number. Drop below that, even by a small amount, and it does become noticeable. I've also noticed that there is a great deal of tearing on some of the textures as well, which is not so great, and there is some inconsistency in the speed that the camera often moves in cutscenes, which means that everything appears juddery. It's a phenomenon that I've certainly seen in other games as well. I'm not really sure what I would call it, but I would safely say that it sucks, because it does. The main problem with the combat engine, and just the game in general, is that it's incredibly monotonous, and unfortunately, everything about it just screams low budget. The storyline is laughably bad. The voice acting and scripting is laughably bad. Some of the worst stuff comes in the tutorial, which is weird, because you think they'd try and put their best foot forward. Oh, they don't. The priest and his, but first, before we start, let me use my healing powers. He says this about 4 or 5 times every time there's about to be a fight. The same voice acting line over and over again, which is just ridiculously silly. I don't really know how they thought that was a good idea. It's pretty laughable, all things considered. I would certainly prefer them to do a better job with the voice acting. There's a character there who I believe becomes the new captain after you eventually go through a series of events that leaves you where you are right now, and his voice acting is just hilarious. He has no idea what he's doing. That is abundantly clear. So, yes, that's a bit of a problem. But I can forgive all of that stuff if the game doesn't suck, but the game does. I'm sorry, this is just not very good. There's just such a lack of any kind of variety in it whatsoever. You know, I can forgive hack-and-slash action RPGs, like Diablo and Torchlight, for having maybe a bit monotonous combat and being kind of a click fest. I can forgive it, I can. But I can't forgive this, because not only does it not have an interesting selection of items, it doesn't have an interesting selection of abilities, because there's basically nothing you can do aside from your character's one ability, the blood-sucking thing, and then your standard 2-button combos, which aren't even really 2-button combos, it's just hammer the left mouse button and every 5 seconds hit the right mouse button, and that is it. That is the only way to fight, the most efficient way to fight. But it just doesn't have anything going for it. Nothing. You know, no interesting loot, no interesting selection of abilities, and if it was going to do the whole, oh, we don't have many abilities thing, we want to be a spectacle fighter, we want to be this kind of God of War style game, then it should have done a damn better job of giving you a selection of things to do with your combos, yeah? Give me some variety, give me a little bit of choice. I can't even throw enemies or anything like that. The game doesn't even tell you you have a dodge move. The tutorial doesn't explain it at all. You've got to go digging in the controls menu to find out that it even exists. For some reason, it's in the skills menu, but there doesn't appear to be an actual upgrade available for it, so I'm not really sure why that's there either. And the whole leveling up thing is just horribly boring as well. Like, hey, I'm level 5, great! I can have 2% more crit. No, that is not how you do leveling up, at all. It is so horribly dull. You need to be able to see a tangible difference in the attack power of your character. You need to be able to learn more moves, and it never gives them to you. Unless there's a bunch of combo moves that are hidden way further on in the game that they just didn't even bother to actually write in the skills menu, then I don't see there being any difference whatsoever when it comes to combat. This is brainless, and it seems like with a lot of enemies you can just stun lock them with left-click spamming anyway, so there's not really a lot of difficulty involved in it. You might die. Did they even need to cutscene that, really? I was in the middle of a fight and they cutscened me to wooden barricades just to tell me that I can destroy wooden barricades. Yeah, great. So you tell me that. That's wonderful. Oh, jeez. Well, apparently they didn't, because I managed to make my way through there. So, you know, that's something I managed to figure out. I'm sure everyone else could have as well. Oh, man. There's just nothing to it. It's just so horribly shallow. And it doesn't inspire any desire to play any more of it. It's a shame, really. But it's not like we don't have better games than this. Hey, you can go play Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which is this, but 5 times better in every way. I mean, that's probably the best way to describe it, really. And it's not like this thing really has anything going, but it's like, oh, you are a vampire. But aside from the whole drinking blood thing to regain health, you might as well not be. It's not like it really makes much of a difference. Oh dear. What's it with the bad vampire games we're getting lately? We had Dark recently, which is just awful, and then we've got this. Hopefully Year of the Vampire ends fairly quickly. I thought it already had. We're currently in Year of the Zombie, but I don't know what on earth's going on with that. Yeah, it's safe to say you should avoid this. It doesn't really have any redeeming factors whatsoever. It doesn't seem to know what it wants to be, and as a direct result, it fails to be everything. It's lousy. It's a waste of your time. It's a low-budget, frankly, creatively bankrupt piece of nonsense that isn't worthy of your time and attention whatsoever. So, don't. Just don't. My name's been TotalBiscuit, taking a look at Blood Knights, currently available on Steam. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.